How have you been able to practice differently as a team, not having Trey and trying to prepare for what you guys are going to experience over these next few weeks?
Yeah, we've played more games than we've had practices. So I guess trying to maximize the amount of time that you have with respect to shoot around and things like that. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is trying to put people in situations that are new to them, not only for them to develop a comfort level, but for their interaction with other players. Trey, losing Trey is different than just losing a player because of his usage, his position, and a lot of really since summer, a lot of what you're doing from a coaching standpoint, trying to figure out ways to make your team function. A lot of that centers around him. So, step back, try to find where those new strengths can come from. Evaluate and adapt. And to your point, practice is an opportunity to do that. We're going to need to take the games and the feedback from the games, and whether it's film or walkthroughs or practice or our shoot-arounds being more intense, given the fact that the intensity with which you work more closely simulates the game. And then our guys embracing where we are, which I think they've done. And it's just it's a process, and one that we're well aware of and are working with.
Coach, the last few games we've had a bit of a trend in the first quarter of starting off slowly, giving up double-digit leads. What do you put that down to? Because I'm sure you've addressed it, before each game, but it's happened.
Yeah. Well, kind of a follow-up on that question. The guy that usually has the ball, we've done a good job taking care of the ball. And against Cleveland, it was really simple. We threw the ball to the other team. And that's a function of us kind of being more precise, meaning in our execution in a set play, being more conscious of the importance of taking care of the ball. It's hard for us to defend against a turnover. The Brooklyn game wasn't the case, but I think some of that's attributable to the newness and that integration, and hopefully that's something that we clean up. But I think the answer is pretty simple. We've got to take care of the ball and get good shots so that we can defend on the other end. And we've got a new group out there that that interacts differently.
I know you mentioned some of this from the game on Sunday in Cleveland, but as far as transition defense is concerned, first couple games of the year, the numbers were pretty rough, and you addressed that. It seems like since then, and totally clear the game had improved. What have you seen on film about that aspect and getting back, basically?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the number of possessions where we have to play it. Early on, we were back, but we didn't have an awareness to stop the ball or to communicate. Guys shifting where they just saw open space, and if an NBA player sees the opportunity to play one-on-one in transition, it's going to be hard to stop him. So sometimes you go through that. I think that's a lot of where our team is. A lot of enthusiasm about a team that has new players and hasn't done anything. So part of that is experiencing and getting real feedback and competition, and we got to run back. Well, what does that mean? We got to run back better. When you get hit in the face, and it's like, okay, now I understand. And I think that's been a constant, and we've needed that. And I think we're going through it again right now, just trying to find out, what constant, that's great. We can check that box and focus on a few other things, but you're right, it's been better, and it's been a point of emphasis, and our guys have done a better job.
Yeah, Quinn, getting back to life without Trey here, I mean, you had that stretch 2 years ago where you didn't have him for like 23 games, I want to say, and really navigated pretty well. The roster's a little different now, but are there things you can take from that translate over, or is this like almost entirely different because of the roster?
I think it's very different. You know, you had DeJounte, who was, you know, established in that role as a point and played that. You had DeAndre Hunter, you had Bogey, you had guys that, you know, they'd gotten buckets. You know, they created offense on their own. You had veteran guys for the most part in those situations, and now we have some vets, but they're new to what we're doing, and we have some young guys that are finding their way. And I think this team kind of coming together and finding an identity and really congealing with Trey was going to be a process. So you're heading down that line, and then you take that variable out, and you're not starting from scratch, but a lot of the guys, all of a sudden, their roles are a little different, and we're all trying to maybe do a little more here, but understand you don't have to do that much because he's doing that, like all those nuances that go into it. But so, yeah, I think this is a different situation, and particularly given the time of the year that it's happening, and the roster, as you mentioned.
One of the early season trends we're seeing across the league is higher defensive pickup points, more backcourt pressure. I was wondering what you think of that trend in general, what you think the trade-offs are if teams choose to employ that style,
Yeah.
what some good counters are for an offense.
Well, it was a big focus for us in the offseason because they are going out. And it's Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, and Trae Young. And, you know, I think that's maybe forgetting somebody. But Trey's getting picked up for different reasons, you know, not necessarily because of his, you know, the way that the range that he shoots with. That's not to say he doesn't do that, but he's getting picked up to impact offense. I think equally important is the size of the people that are picking up. That's one of the reasons, and I think this is applicable, where, you know, you want to pass the ball if you're looking for a way to mitigate that on some level where you have multiple hammers. And someone like Trey, you know, he and I have talked about this a ton, and him playing without the ball, you know, and being the guy that's spacing. You know, when you run, you know, he's going to be a primary handler, but are there other things you can do, you know, set plays in particular? It's harder to do that, you know, after a miss. It happens more in a dead ball and a make. So it's something that, you know, you've seen that trend going that way, and it's an obvious one to us because we've got a guy that, you know, is impacted by it in a significant way. So there's a lot of things that, you know, and now we've got a different situation because those pickup points stay there, but we don't have, you know, someone that's been, Nikhil's played the play point, but he's also played two, like, his comfort level there is going to be important. Keaton Wallace, who, you know, has been great in our organization, going from an Exhibit 10 to a two-way to a roster player. And now he finds himself, you know, as a rotational player in you know, playing important minutes. And, you know, those guys are ready for that. But they need to do it collectively.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay?